Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Shania Hurtado, and I'm a former Girl of Teen advisor, and I'm so excited to be moderating the panel More Than Someone's Daughter. I'm joined here today by Richard Liu, a journalist and the author of Enough About Me, and Justin Baldoni, a co-founder of Wayfarer Studios and a filmmaker and author. So let's get started. So our first question is, what are some reasons or personal experiences that motivated you both to be a male feminist and ally? And we can start with Justin.
First of all, hi, you're awesome. And I'm so happy to be here. And Richard, I love that we both have the word enough in our books. I love that.
It was a coordination, my friend, right?
Yeah. I think it's important. The thing we're all trying to be. I don't think it was a lot of little moments. I think the big thing for me was recognizing how I would oftentimes hurt people, women and men in my life and myself. And then afterwards, because I'm naturally very sensitive and empathetic, I noticed that I was drowning out those parts of myself, hurting people that I loved, and then feeling terrible about it afterwards and having no explanation for why. And it was kind of an amalgamation of a lot of those experiences that really started getting me to ask the question, like, what am I doing? Why? Why am I interrupting my wife? Why am I being defensive? Why am I trying to puff out my chest and put down another friend of mine to build myself up? And it was a lot of those types of experiences, because as boys, we're taught to, as Bell Hooks says, commit soul murder at a very early age, and drowned out the empathy and the sensitivity and the compassion that would prevent us from hurting the people we loved in those ways. That would be my answer to kind of the spur of the journey, what got me started.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I have a little brother myself, and teaching him about empathy and compassion is something that is so incredibly important. So thank you so much, Justin. Richard, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, Shania, first of all, thanks for getting us together. And big fan of your book. When I saw it come up, Justin, I was like, we need more authors like you doing that stuff. So keep on trucking, my friend.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, it's little by little always works, and that's a big chunk that you put on the wall to make a big difference here. So thanks.
I will. I'd love to send you a copy, man. That'd be awesome.
We're in. For me, it was a lot of discovery as a journalist. My first story on human trafficking was at CNN about 14 years ago, maybe 15 now. And I knew there was something wrong. I just didn't know what. And I traveled to a small island in Indonesia. It's about an hour and a half boat ride from Singapore. And I had to go undercover to do a story that is unfortunately very common. It was a brothel that was underground. And, we had to get approval from our supervisors. And when we got underneath, and I had a translator that was supposedly my fixer, right? I'm the tourist going in to hire a girl. And it was my first undercover story for human trafficking. And the house mother hit a bell, and 30 girls walked out behind what looked like a meat counter that we see at any supermarket with bright lights. And they sat down, and she proceeded to tell me, that's your AAA. That just came in. That's the most popular cut, if you will. And the way she talked about it is both of you know so unfortunately well, it is a big problem. And that was my first story. And then when I would travel to different continents, and I would always make it a point to cover a story on this, even in the United States, where we often forget that it actually happens here. And I think after trying to find an answer, which I still haven't, but trying to find the answer as to why every country, every continent had a similar way of the way they would put girls and women in these situations where they were not human, was really frustrating and angering to me. I've sister, a loved one, a mother, a grandmother, two grandmothers, that I would never ever think that that is appropriate and would make all of us in this discussion frustrated. That's what inspired me to keep on asking.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Richard. So our next question is, how do you show up as an ally in your everyday life? And what are some ways that men can be good allies to girls and women?
Want to take this one first, Richard, or you want me to go?
Yeah, you go, man. In order, right?
First of all, it's hard to move forward without seeing the picture of what you experienced on that first journalistic expose there, and it makes me think about the ways in which us men are taught and raised as young boys to dehumanize and to view women as objects and property. And it's not just a Western thing, obviously. It's global. And it just breaks my heart, especially as the father of a daughter, which I'm so grateful I am, but just as a human. And the problem is it doesn't break enough hearts. And that's why the problem isn't being solved, right? It's not a big enough issue. That's not going to solve our economic crisis. It's not going to make COVID go away, right? It's like these are issues and they're happening all over the world. But if you combined all of them together, it would be its own epidemic, pandemic, right? What's happening with sex trafficking all over the world. And it's because of our collective view as viewing girls and women as less than, which starts as young boys, right? When we're taught that in order to gain acceptance to this boys club, to the man club, to hold our man card, we have to reject the feminine parts of ourselves and dehumanize women in the process and view them as property. And so it only makes sense that eventually that will seep into every aspect of our life as a culture. And you'll have men and women, mind you, because of course women are raised in the same culture with their own internalized misogyny, be complicit in what you experience. So anyways, man, that just rocked me the way you described that. And then ways that I'm doing it, honestly, it's very simple. I'm asking myself questions. I am starting with the person in the mirror. And again, I like to consider myself an ally in training. An ally, an ally is someone to me, like, because I'm going to mess up. And the last thing, it's just, we all are. Every man is. Just like all of us white folks are going to mess up in the fight against, racism and for racial justice, being an accomplice. So I don't know if I'll ever really, truly be an ally, because I have stuff in my life that I'm continuing to unlearn, and I always will. So for me, it shows up in little ways. It starts in the mirror. It starts in my marriage. It starts with my relationship with my daughter. And I'm sure it's like sexy to have an answer that's like, I am doing this in panels and writing books. It's not about that, honestly. The world doesn't need us to do more of those big things. The world needs us to do more of the small things, which is one of the things I do write about in the book. And I think we get lost, especially folks, I hate to say this, especially folks who identify with more liberal values. I'm a Baha'i, so I don't identify with a political party, but the left versus right thing, especially folks who on the left, folks that could be considered woke as an example, tend to forget that it's really showing up in the small ways and doing the self-work that is more important than the public activism. And that's what I've learned in my life, because there could be a dichotomy of who I am out in the world and who I am at home. And I need to be the person at home before I'm the person out in the world.
Incredible, Justin. And I love how you say that allyship is a verb. It's something that you're continuously working on, continuously unlearning and learning and building. And even me and myself, as an activist, it's always that. It's always trying to find ways that we can really show up for people and really show up for this movement. So thank you. Richard, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. I hope we can keep on talking for like 5 hours. Does Zoom go that long? because this is so important, and I was just going a lot of internal amens when Justin was just talking and Shania and you were talking, because I call myself now an 8-year-old feminist. I'm about this tall. And as an 8-year-old feminist, it means I got a lot of learning to go. And just because I say I'm in doesn't mean I'm in, is in that energy of what Justin's saying. But when I'm 8 years old, I'm learning. And the mistakes I'll make, please embrace me as I'm trying to learn, because I'm going to fall. But I'm trying. And I find myself all the time tripping and having a conversation and then taking a step back and going, wait, but you just said the other time this, but you're acting and saying this. And so I've allowed myself to make mistakes, but I've also allowed myself to self-check myself when I can. And I think that's the first step for me as an ally, to understand my male privilege every time I walk into a room. And it's given to me unfairly. And every time I'll do a talk, let's say the ones that are always very challenging are those when I might be in the financial industry, and we'll be talking about this. And Justin and Shania, this. It's talking about gender equity or gender equality in those spaces is one of the most learning, the biggest opportunity, shall I say? And this context of walking into a room and having a tough audience is important to see that it's always that way. And so I focus on, like Justin was saying, the little things, words. And as a journalist, that's the way I attack it to start. How am I addressing you as a person? How do I respect your name? And if I can respect your name, I'm respecting you regardless of your background, of your gender. And no matter how difficult it may be to pronounce or say, I must respect that very beginning of who you are and what you've been given as a person. And so as an 8-year-old feminist now, being an ally, I know, is a lifelong journey, and something that super well, and I have a long way to go. And I'm going to keep on bringing out the book to read to figure out how to get better.
Amazing. That's incredible. And I love how you talked about, having conversations and really just talking about this is, making a difference already, like listening and reflecting and seeing our own biases and how we talk to others. And I know that you already talked about, how it's the little things that, can really help you become an ally. Both you and Justin talked about this. But is there any other advice? We love to end these panels with a call to action. So is there any advice that you would give to male allies out there who want to start taking actionable steps as a feminist and as an ally?
If you're asking me, Shania, I would say read. Find 2 or 3 sites and follow them. Don't make it the obligation of every woman or girl or every female to tell you what it's like to be. Educate yourself first and then ask the question. It is that opening discussion needs to show that you are earnest and interested in it. And I think, it's just like when we think about racial equity. Don't go up to every person that happens to be of a certain background to say, hey, what is it like to be that? Instead, follow what is being written and being learned in that space. So get woke on your own.
Awesome. Justin, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, look, I would just say, first of all, if there is a male watching this right now, that's awesome. This is, so you're doing the first step, because I know this is primarily, going to be women and girls here. So if there are boys here and men, that's awesome. So you're already in the right place, I would say. You found yourself in one of the right rooms. I would assume, kind of as Richard said, that you know far less than you think you do. That would be another thing, based on the programming that we've all had as boys. What's tricky being a male in this space is that our culture, the patriarchy, if you will, will, even in this space, ask us to exert our privilege, which is really weird, right? So you can be a man in this space, and there's a part of us men that naturally just wants to take up more space, that naturally will be telling us like, oh yeah, I know this, I got this, I got this. Hey, I got this. It's in all of us. And so the real work is to then unlearn and to not listen to that. And that's you don't just unlearn it. It's a continuous practice, right? As you said, a verb, you're always doing it. So it's to assume that you know less versus the way we were raised, which is to assume that we know, or that we know more, or it all. That would be the thing that I would tell men and boys, is you have to be humble in your approach to learning about this, because it's not about you. And we're taught that everything's about us. That would be like, that's my baby steps. And I love the 8-year-old feminist, the ally in training thing. It's like, we're babies in this, and we have to be, because it's not our life experience. And we're going to fall and we're going to mess up, and we got to be down to fall and take the feedback. And hopefully we'll be met with compassion and empathy along the way.
I love that. I love how you bring up the importance of listening and really just taking a step back and understanding that this experience is different, and that just because it's different doesn't mean that you lose any sense of who you are, or like your male identity, but it's just coming to a compromise and learning from one another and having these important conversations. So thank you both again for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. It has been a privilege for me to hear about your story, to hear how you are a part of this movement. And I hope you both continue to be a part of this movement and continue to push forth and really inspire others and inspire men to really take charge, because this movement needs all of us. It needs every single person in the world. And as long as we fight for that, then we can really create a world where every girl is treated equally and every girl has access to education and can feel safe, because everyone deserves that. So thank you both so much again for your time and for being a part of this summit.